Oh, hello there. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Hot Breath, the show where you learn comedy from the pros. I am comedian Joel Byers, and every single week we're doing Q&As with some of Tomedy's. You know what? I'm already bombing, so let's just get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today, we've done over 300 interviews, but our guest today is one of our most highly demanded. This guy knows comedy in and out, and we're so excited to learn as much from him as possible. So without further ado, welcome to the Hot Breathiverse, the one and only Mr. Chad Daniels, everyone. Welcome, Mr. Daniels, to the show here. Yes, that's when interviewing a comic. I learned we got to get the self-deprecation out of the way up front. We just got to get that out of the way before we jump in. Oh, should they not have high expectations for you, Chad? Okay. Well, jumping right into it, something that I've learned in researching you is your you like comedy, you enjoy comedians, but there's also that reality of comedy. I've heard you tell a story about, you hear of a comic saying, "I paid my dues waiting an hour outside the comedy store." And then you're like, "Oh, well, my dues were sleeping in a Walmart parking lot." If you could, there's a lot of young comics that listen. If you could kind of share some just reality from a comic who started in 1998, some reality of what does it mean to pay your dues in comedy? Hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, great, but sometimes you're going to have to not even get paid or get paid less than the gas it took you to get there,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is. I mean, you really do have to put in the groundwork, and times are changing. I'm stubborn. I don't do Zoom shows. I won't do stand up on Zoom because, listen, I'm a real bitch and a baby when I'm on stage, and if I'm not getting the laughs that I want,
Yeah.
I'll tell the crowd. I go, "Hey, you're not doing your job. I'm, whatever." And I can't even imagine how bad I would lose my mind on a Zoom show. But we were talking before the mics were hot, and you were saying you do this writing seminar and you do, all like the fix a joke on Facebook and all of that stuff, and that's going to be really important because eventually shows are going to start happening again,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be you and your group and the people that are doing that across America that are building a foundation, so they have the tons of stuff to go out with. And then you're going to have old stubborn guys like me that are going to get left in the dust because we're like, yeah, I didn't do shit. I walked my dog, I raked my leaves, I have no more funny stories since March 8th. So I think what you guys are doing is very important too, as with the new climate of comedy.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks for saying that. And it is tough. And it all started, honestly, with me being in comedy 10 years. And all of a sudden, all my road work is gone. And I'm like,
Sure.
what am I going to do? And it was kind of like, I need some sort of accountability, is what I
Right.
started to like ask. Okay, how can I be accountable? I guess I'll start writing online every day. And I would just film myself writing for 10 minutes, and saying like, here's what I came up with. And it just kind of organically grew into this online community that it's been a game changer for me and for a lot of the people in it. And I do feel inspired that there are comics who do like the feedback mic in our Facebook group and things that then say,
Sure.
I did it at a Zoom show and it worked really well, or I did it at a live show and it worked really well. But you got to be willing to do the work at the end of the day. Like, you can get all the
Absolutely.
techniques, you can get all the tips, but you've got to get on stage and put them to work.
Yeah, that's true. There are so many talented people in this industry, but the amount of talent it takes to just go up and wing it 100% is off the charts. And you rarely see somebody that can do something like that.
Yes, but I feel like that's a young comic, like what is it, Mirage, where you see like
Sure.
Dave Chappelle talking, and they're like, oh, he's just talking. I could do that. And
Right.
then you may strike lightning once, but that's not sustainable if you just go up and riff and then be like, oh, I'm the magical comic. I hacked it. It's like, no.
Right. And once, you have to have such a plethora of knowledge to
Mm.
do that. I mean, you need such a vast pond from which to grab these facts and situations. And because if you're riffing, hey man, there's a good chance you're going to be wrong eventually. And that's no fun either, because once that little crack shows up, that little crack in the dam,
Mm.
the crowd's going to start picking at it and picking at it, and it is not fun. It's like blood in the water. So
Yeah. It's that moment when the laughs get quieter and quieter, and then the harder you fight, like the tighter you get into the quicksand. It's
yeah,
such a bad
absolutely.
feeling. What is that like? I read where you, on your Comedy Central taping in like 2008, I think the audience wasn't laughing loud enough, and you like called them out on it. Is that something you did?
Well, it is. I mean, so here's the situation. I don't want to sound like an asshole my whole career, but so you work hard and you're out on the road and you finally get this break and you want it to go well. And
Mm-hmm.
there was a show that ended up on XM. I believe at the time it was a New York terrestrial radio show, and it was Opie and Anthony. It was called.
Oh yeah.
And Robert Kelly, who is just so fantastically funny
Yeah.
and just such a good dude as well, but um, he was set to go up with another comedian that I'm not going to name, but then that comedian didn't want to share the crowd with Robert Kelly, because Robert Kelly's show sold out first out of all of the tapings. So how it works is two comedians share the same crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So they basically get, just over an hour of material because you're doing 40 so they can do edits and stuff. And then he was huge on Opie and Anthony. And all these Opie and Anthony guys, I'm going to tell you, they are people that, a lot of them in the front row had chains outside of turtlenecks. It felt very I'm from Minnesota.
Right.
So it felt very Bon Jovi to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't laughing and they were sitting with their arms folded and stuff. And so I absolutely unleashed on them. And then it was great after that. It was so much fun. I told them, I'm going to do a full hour 20. You're not going to see Robert Kelly. I just kind of basically said, I know you don't know who I am, but God damn it, laugh anyways.
Yeah.
And they were very nice and came around and decided like, oh, all right, this little punk actually wants this to go well. So yes, but it was fun. And I told Robert Kelly that story in Montreal a couple of years ago, and man, he was just laughing at the fact that he almost took the train off the tracks there.
Yeah, we had him on here, and it was a good interview after he stopped roasting me. Him and Rich Voss just had to like break me in before we could even get to the interviews.
Absolutely. Yep, that makes sense.
What is the worst? I always ask comics on here like a story of getting booed or just like their most unforgettable bomb. What is that for you?
Um, I've had I've had several. I was in doing a bar show. There was a Confederate flag up in front of me, and the comedian that came with me, friend of mine, African American guy, and he went up and he's like doing the old, "Hey, this is funny and this is funny," and I went up and I was just like, as I was watching my friend do this, I was getting more upset and more upset, and so I went on stage and took the flag down and told them blah blah blah, and then this guy, probably not loaded, I will say, but did wave a gun, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, you got to be kidding me right now. Over a backdrop? I mean, come on.
Well, at least he didn't throw anything at you.
Yeah, it's very true, but there were it was booing, loud booing, and then I'm sure other words with hard K's at the end.
Yes, yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes. Yeah, those are nobody. That's another thing I like young comics to hear is just the stories of people bombing, so they know that they're not the only ones. Like, I feel like comics feel like you graduate from bombing at some point, but I feel like no one's really immune to it.
Sure. I heard a great story that Bill Burr was telling that, um, he was uh, starting to sell tickets from people that knew what they were getting into. And so he was just on this, automatic crush mode.
Hmm.
And then he went in to do a guest set in Chicago, but the comedian that was headlining that week, they were completely opposite of what Bill Burr is. And so a lot of the people in the room didn't know who Bill Burr was. And so Bill Burr struggled for a while to get them back. And that is saying something too. It's like when you do get a crowd, it is nice to go out and try to make people laugh that aren't part of your crowd to see if your jokes, it's like, do these work all over the place? Or are they just working because people are here to see me?
Yeah, that's something I had to discipline myself. I started comedy in Atlanta, so I could do like go to the hood of Atlanta and do a spot, go to the hipster bar and do a spot, and then like go to like the punchline and do a spot. And it was kind of like if a joke worked in one place and not the other, then I would get rid of it because it would be like super specific to that audience and not translate
Sure.
when I'm in like, Charlotte, North Carolina or something like that.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that's a good move, and same with, like, local references and everything like
Yeah.
that. Because there are times where I'll be watching and somebody will be like, "And I can't believe these assholes from Pondaluca," and everyone goes nuts, and I just go, "Oh, I don't know Pondaluca. I don't know what's happening."
What do you do when you have a joke that's working and then all of a sudden it stops working?
Well, I record every single set that I do on my phone, and so
Nice.
I just go back a month before and see, and I pull that little chunk out of the set,
Hmm.
and then I listen to them one after another to see what's different. And because that's all it'll take. It'll take, you add something that you think is funny, but it's a sentence that doesn't need to be there. And it takes whatever it's dividing, there's too big of a lull in it it's not a bridge, it's more of a gap.
Hmm.
And so you'll end up losing momentum and it'll take it from, a hard laugh to a chuckle, or sometimes even an applause break to a confused look. I mean, it can be that significant. So,
Jeez. Oh wow. That's
so
in,
yeah, I mean, I say record every single set. That way you just have reference to go back.
but it's recording is one level and then actually listening to it is it's like another level of responsibility comics have to remember to do.
Yeah, I mean, I get a coffee and it's the first thing I do in the morning because I can't stand my own voice.
Hmm.
You wouldn't know that considering I've let you say 4 words so far.
You're doing great,
But
Chad.
but
You're the guest. You're supposed to be the one talking.
but yeah, you have to listen to it. Otherwise, it's how you can watch another comedian and then you're like, oh, I got a tag for you. I mean, when you listen to yourself, if you really listen and dial it in, you'll come up with tags and figure out why stuff doesn't work and why it is working and whatever else. So,
Yeah, I'll consider listening as part of writing. Because you do find new
sure.
tags and ideas just from listening to a set.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you do pen to paper? Like, how do you? And actually, this will be your IHOP story.
Mhm.
Maybe we could use this as almost like a template for your writing technique. But you have this story of you going to IHOP with your family, and then something happens. So, as a comedian, we're always looking in life of like, oh, how can I take that to stage? But how do you take an experience like going to Waffle House with your family and making it a joke that's like laugh, 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 laugh?
I was actually in a car with just hilarious comedian out of St. Louis, Sean O'Brien, and he makes me laugh so hard. And I was telling him this story, and he's kind of he's an East Coast guy, and so he's got that kind of tough edge to him, and doesn't laugh at everything you say. If it's stupid, he'll just look at you. And I was telling him this story because it just happened, and he was laughing so hard, and he goes, "You tell that on stage?" And I'm like, "Well, no, I'm not doing a bit on you." And he goes, "You have to." So St. Louis was the first place I tried it because I told my buddy Sean about it, and he's like, "You got to do that on stage." And so I brought the bones of it on stage, and then you try to figure out, what else can I do here? How can I, the end of it is a callback to a joke about my son, and so you figure it out. But I think for me, putting a story on stage is, do you think it's funny?
Mm.
If something happens to me that morning, I always do it on stage just to see. But when someone who doesn't laugh at everything and you find incredibly funny laughs, then I think that's a good tester to bring it up there.
And when you say you bring the bones on stage, do you like you tell the story to Sean, and then do you then go and kind of create an outline of like different beats within the story that are the bones of it?
Well, I just knew that the main punchline of the story was going to work because it was that's what made me laugh. That's what made Sean laugh the hardest. And so I knew as long as I could get there, and then you try to get little laughs on the way there, and try to build them up after show. And that's why I record. But um, yeah, if you have a big laugh that even if it takes you a minute to get to an applause break,
Mm-hmm.
then you can go back and find laughs before that to build up to it. So, that's what I talk about. The bones is that one big laugh and a story around it, even if it's not that funny, because then you'll be able to shake the funny out of it eventually.
And do you find the laughs along the way? And I'm assuming the big line is your daughter's what your daughter says? Is that like the big
Correct. Yeah.
laugh?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So is it in finding leading up to that line, is it like to add laughs? Is it details? Do you have like a checklist of almost, okay, I need to add some funny to this story. Let me look for contrasting ideas or let me look for misdirects. Do you kind of go through a mental checklist?
Well, I try not to do too many misdirects.
Mm-hmm.
I just try to paint a picture with to try to really build up to what I know is going to work. And
Mm.
so whether that's details, whether it's letting the people in on, a very personal aspect of your life. For example, I bring my kids to IHOP. I show them pictures of the city that I was just in. Um, and then you can make fun of IHOP. It's the fact that the tables there are so incredibly sticky, and of course they are. It's a pancake place, and syrup goes on pancake. Of course it's sticky, but everybody knows that, and everybody is like, "Yeah, gross. It is sticky." So you kind of build and you kind of gain their trust with that first part of the story, and then you can go in and get the laughs, and then the big laugh towards the end. And I'm saying all this with the parenthetical, hopefully that's how it works, but not always.
Over time, I mean, I've heard Bert Kreischer
Right.
say his machine story took him like 4 years or something like
Sure.
that to develop. So it's a process.
Absolutely.
Oh, we got some questions popping in here as well. There's one more. Napping while dreaming. Sean in the building. Matthew, zombie robot sheep. Sasha. Oh, a few Johns in here. Oh, good to see everyone. Dan and Shauna Maynard say hello.
Oh, right back at him.
Very nice. Evelyn in here as well. Bo. Looks like Bo has a question here. And I do want to ask this before we jump into the questions. And people watching do go ahead and post some questions in the comments, and we'll get Chad to answer them for you.
Well,
But
before
this
we
was
get
just
started, you said Dan Maynard said hello, and of course Shauna, but I want to say to Dan Maynard, I want to say you owe me an explanation on your Facebook post, brother. That's it.
oh
That's that. I'm using this as a way to get to him, to tell him, give me the deets. All right, I'm ready.
yeah, Dan and
In your face,
Shauna.
Maynard. All right.
Oh, and Jeremy Alder says, "Hey, Chad," as well, and Michael Wolfelmeyer. Very nice.
Well, look at this. Look at all the people showed up.
We out here. So
Jeremy, my son. Not a lot of people know that.
oh, Dan says you got it. So
Okay, perfect.
this is the last thing I wanted to touch on before we get to viewer questions as well is about the business side of comedy. And something you've had a lot of success with is streaming on the audio side. I mean, the number I heard was you've had over like 750 million streams
Sure.
across your 5 albums. So like
I'm not sure what the number is. It's something like that.
it's up there though. And that's what I just released I self-produced my own comedy special and released it on my 10-year anniversary, and I released the audio onto Sirius. So
Okay.
I've gotten a taste of residuals of like what's possible with it, you know?
Sure.
So how you can even direct this advice at me if you would like, but more of like how can comics build momentum on these streaming platforms, cuz they can be sustainable income really.
Okay. So how do we get people that are already on Pandora, are already on Spotify, right? You can't really direct people to XM because that's an extra, right? People have that. And they don't search you out on XM and Sirius. They play you and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Pandora and Sirius, however, they have to search you out. They have to make a station. They have to do those things. So what I did, and I don't know if this would work for anyone else, but I just got little beer coasters with the picture of my album. It was called, which one did I do? Footprints on the Moon. And then on the back of it, it said, check out Chad on Pandora, make a station. And then it gave I don't even know what it's called, URL. And so I would hand those out after shows. I would just sit there and hang out. And, they don't cost much in the grand scheme of things. And so I was like, you guys going to the bar next door? All right, hey, here's some coasters. And sometimes you can get the club to put the coasters on the table, and then people will just pocket them. And then they get home and they're hungover the next day, so they're looking at this and like, I got nothing else to do. I'm chained to the toilet right now. May as well blah blah blah. And they make a station. Then all the people that have your station, there's something on Pandora called AMP, A-M-P, where you can make your own commercials, right? So right now I can make, I'll pull this up while I'm doing this, but I can make a commercial for, all right, so right now, okay, so 428,000 active listeners, and I can make a commercial that will go to all of them right when they start the station. And it'll say like, hey, this is Chad Daniels. Thanks for listening to my station. Hey, check out, this on this. Check out my new podcast, Middle of Summer. Check out blah, blah, blah. And then that's a commercial that goes out to everyone that has a station for you. So what you really are trying to do with this is get people to make a station of your stand-up. In order to have a station, you have to have content on Pandora, of course. Mm-hmm. And then people listen, and I will tell you that Pandora and Spotify money is not the same as XM money. It's like, a very, very small fraction of a penny per listen. But that's the way to get there. And then you get people listening to it. You're in a pandemic. You're not on the road. You have a podcast. People can still listen to your material. It's accessible. It's free for them. So that's what I did. As far as like getting more lists, I don't know how it happened. Certainly very thankful, but nobody gave me, I sent a message to Pandora just openly. And I said, whoever put my stuff on all the stations, I'd like their name so I can send them something. and they wouldn't tell me. They were just like, keep sending us your albums. I was like, all right. So it
Wow.
was, I've worked hard, but have I had some luck and some good people around me and in my corner. So um, be nice.
That has been such a common phrase we've been saying is be nice and be funny. Like, period.
Yeah, sure.
That's so interesting. What are some other kind of strokes of luck that that you've had throughout your career?
I had so um, I worked with a guy in. All right, let me start over. In Minneapolis, there used to be two comedy clubs. One was Acme, where I started. The other one was at the Mall of America, and that was called Knuckleheads. And so
Right.
the guy that booked Knuckleheads, his name was Rich Miller, and he also booked Tulsa, San Antonio, and Austin, Texas. And so once you emceed at Knuckleheads and were a Minneapolis guy and you were ready to feature, he would send you to Tulsa as like the test to get to go to San Antonio and Austin because those were his babies. Same with Austin. Austin has a great comedy scene, and it was the same with them. When somebody was ready to feature, they'd send them to Tulsa to see if they could go to Minneapolis. So it was kind of a foreign exchange
Cool.
student, a little bit of a flip flop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I went down to Tulsa. I worked with a guy named John Morgan. He's out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and he crushes maybe harder than anyone I've ever seen crush. And we were in a condo together, which is basically to say the club buys a house so they don't have to pay for hotel rooms, and then you kind of just share the house. You have your own room, you have your own everything, but you share the house. And John and I really hit it off. And John called, who did he call? He called Dave Stroop out of Columbus, Ohio, who books, I think, all the Funny Bones, which is just like a massive amount of work. He called Freddie DeMarco from Deja Vu Comedy Club. Not, I know everyone thinks Deja Vu is a strip club, but it was Deja Vu Comedy Club in Missouri, and those two gave me so much work. And Freddie DeMarco got me into auditioning for the Montreal Comedy Festival. And this is all because I happened to work with this guy and get along with him so well. And he was so nice. And he basically said, book this. So normally you had to send a tape to get booked. And he just called them both and said, nope, book them right now. While I'm here, I want him to fill out his calendar. And my calendar was basically booked after that. And so,
Wow.
that's one. When I was very, very new, I was a bartender, and I worked at a place called the Eagle's Nest. And this lady named Ron and Cindy owned it. And this lady named Cindy, so wonderful. She would give me the week off to go work comedy. And then when I was back, she would give me the shifts of the people that had covered for me on the other week. So I was constantly working. And without that income, I had a new baby. Um,
Wow.
so without that income, there's just no way I would have been able to make that happen. And probably the biggest, and I know people, this might weird people out, but my ex-wife was the most understanding, and she had all the faith in me in the world. And so if you don't have something like that, I mean, she basically worked full time. She's a college professor, and then she also watched two children, and I know they're hers, but raised two children while I was on the road. And she had faith in me, so she allowed me to do that. I get a lot of young comedians are like, my girlfriend's pregnant. How did you make it work? And it's like, I don't know. This feels like a lightning strike, what happened to me, because my ex is, there's no way I'm at where I'm at right now without her support. No chance.
Wow. It's
And you
beautiful.
say, why she's your ex? Well, that's for the next podcast.
I wasn't even going to go there. We're keeping it comedy related. We don't want any blue jokes in here.
Nope. Yeah. So I mean, it really is. It's all of that stuff, And
Wow.
so, yeah, it's like I said, you work hard, but you need some breaks.
Being nice and being funny. You were nice to the guy and you were funny and he was willing to refer you. So being nice and being funny.
Sure.
Nice. Well, I don't want to. I want to be nice and answer some other comics questions as well.
All right.
But we're deep in here. Oh, this is an interesting observation. AK40 says Chad is an underrated comic, I think. He's saying by choice, I think. Chad is an underrated comic by choice, I think. If he would have moved to LA or New York 10 years ago, he would be a household name.
That's very nice.
Do you
We'll
agree?
we'll never know.
We'll
Well,
never
there
know.
there are times, and this, is going to make me sound like Mr. Dad, but there are times people do ask me that in interviews. They'll ask, "Do you ever think about what you missed out on by not moving to LA or New York?" And as lame as this sounds, I mean, the real answer is I know what I didn't miss out on
Mm.
by staying in Minnesota. So, I mean, my kids are, I think for the most part, happy and well adjusted. And I was able to come back and just kind of have a home base. There's not comedy here, right? So when I was home, that was it. I was just home. And so I guess I don't know. I mean, who knows? I might have stuck a needle in my arm and died in a gutter if I lived in LA. Nobody knows. But that's very nice of AK40 to say that.
All right. Let's scroll.
Needle in the arm got a little dark, huh?
Needle in the arm. It just made me
I
think
was just
of
taking it to a whole different
all
level.
I could think. Well, I knew you had worked with Mitch Hedberg, but I didn't know how closely. So I didn't know how closely the needle reference landed.
No, Mitch was man, so talented, so
Incredible.
fantastic.
How much did you work with him?
I worked with him a lot. So I started in Minneapolis and I did open mics for a while, and then I got offered an audition to move to Grand Forks, North Dakota, which is just on the border of Minnesota and North Dakota, up closer to Canada. And I didn't know anything about it, and I went up there for an audition week, and I had Minneapolis legend Darlene Westgore was the feature, and Mitch Hedberg was the headliner on my audition week, and this was right after he signed his huge development deal in Montreal with Fox. He got a $500,000 development deal, pretty much unheard of at this point. But Time had just come out with an article saying he was the happy Stephen Wright. Just like
Whoa.
he was getting so much momentum and so much press. And so when I got there, all these comedians from Minneapolis had driven up, and so I just left him alone. And then he sought me out because I was leaving him alone, to the point where we hung out all weekend. He had me in his room after shows because he was like, "I like you, I want you around," which was fascinating to me because I can be really annoying. But I mean, when I went back there after I got the gig, I was at a bar and I didn't have my ID, and one of the other the bouncer was like, "You can't come in, no way." And I was with the people that worked at the club, and the bouncer was like, "I don't care." And then another bouncer came up and goes, "Hey, let him in. That's Mitch Hedberg's friend." And I was like, "Holy shit!" So I didn't know. I don't know if Mitch Hedberg would have said that at that time, but it was pretty cool using someone else's coolness to
Yeah.
be cool. I've never done that before, and it felt awesome. I totally get why people do it.
Did you guys keep in touch? Like, did you work together a lot more?
Yeah, so in the 6 months I was there, he came back 2 more times. So
Jeez.
he was just like, everyone loved him so much. I mean, he packed the room, and he was great friends with the owner, Chris, who's another fantastic guy. Um, and then Chris booked him, the guy that owned the club, booked Mitch on some other gigs and had me open for him. And so actually, the first weekend I ever worked with Mitch on my audition week, he brought me down to open for him on a one-nighter on the Sunday night, which was I thought was fascinating because I just felt the coolest I've ever felt.
Yeah.
Yep.
To do a one-nighter. I love that.
I mean,
That's
he
so
actually,
cool.
those blue sunglasses that he was always wearing, kind of famous for?
Yeah.
He bought those on the way from Minneapolis to Grand Forks that weekend. So I just feel like a little, I just such a comedy nerd.
Oh, you are
But
too?
no, no, I mean, well, absolutely. I mean, I loved comedy since the time I was little.
Uh-huh.
Um, but just to kind of be like, oh, I was there the weekend he bought those glasses. It's so nerdy, but it's also so fantastic.
Oh, of course. No, I love that. I mean, Mitch was the guy. Like, oh, he's the comic I sounded like when I started. Like, when
Mm.
comic starts out, they just absorb whoever they hear. Mitch was the guy I sounded like. I just love the structure and the absurdity and just the contrast. I mean, he was my favorite and still one of my favorites.
Yeah, anytime Mitch would go to a city, everybody had that little pot smoker laugh
Mm-hmm.
by the end of it. Every open micer, and I had the guy Book Knuckleheads Rich I told you about. He came up to me after a set and he goes, "You start smoking weed, then I don't know about it." And I was like, "No." And he goes, "Well, then stop laughing like it. You sound like an idiot." And I was like, "All right, thank you."
That's why it's important to listen to your own sets also, because
Yeah, sure,
I found if I listen to myself, I sound like myself more. But if I listen to a comic too much, I start sounding like that comic.
makes sense.
Yeah. So let's see a few more. Mitch Hedberg. He's just, yeah. Um, oh, here's a Bo Johnson. What do you do in those moments that you feel the material well is dry and you'll never write anything funny again?
Stop pushing it. That's what I do.
Hmm.
I mean, when I try to think of a name, I can know the name before I start the story. I can actually think the name, and then I start the story. I'm like, oh, what's that name again? And then the more I think about it, the deeper it goes, the deeper it buries itself. So when I'm not writing, I don't write. And then eventually it slowly comes back, and then you'll find, you won't write anything for 3 months, and then you'll write 45 minutes of material in 3 weeks. So I just wouldn't put that much pressure on it because it will come back.
So you're
At
more of
least,
the.
at least for me, I can't tell Bo Johnson that it will come back for them, but
Mhm.
for me, it does.
Yeah, it's always interesting to ask comics that because like we talked to Ted Alexandro and he's like write every day regardless type deal and showing up and doing the work, treating it like a job. You go to other jobs when you don't feel like it. So he's like, so write when you don't feel like it. But for you, it's more of like if you don't force it, and then when it does reveal itself, you really tap into it.
Well, I will write what's happening. I'll journal. I will
Okay.
write what's happening in my life. But if I'm not feeling funny and I get frustrated, I just journal as I would actually journal, right? I just
Oh, okay.
that way I don't forget the stories, I don't forget what's happening, I don't forget my, emotional presence in a story. So I still have that to look back on, and I'll Tommy Johnigan does that too. Go back, he'll put the journal away for a month, go back and look at it.
Yeah. And this ties in Jason Fox asking, do you have a regular writing schedule? Do you already have something in mind or you just start writing whatever comes to mind?
Normally, I have to have something. I have to have a little tidbit of an idea, and I don't necessarily have a schedule. I mean, there are times where I'll have to turn off a TV show or I'll have to leave a movie theater so I can write some stuff down in my notes.
Hmm.
Well, this was back when I went to movies, but bedtime is a big one for me. I, you know, I go to bed at old man time, and there are times where I'm still up at midnight, leaning over my little end table by my bed, writing stuff. So it just depends. Um, it strikes when it strikes, and you think about it when you think about it. So I would just say, actually, speaking of Hedberg, has that great joke. Sometimes I'll think of a bed. I'm going to butcher it, but sometimes I'll think of a joke in bed and a pen won't be close to me. So I have to spend the next 5 minutes telling myself it wasn't funny.
Yeah.
So I would say always have a pen on you or your phone with your notes app or whatever it is. But
Yes, yes. Honor the ideas by writing them down.
sure.
Yeah,
That's
and you seem
yeah. I
disciplined.
could
You
have
say
said that
you
whole
always.
thing.
Go ahead.
I could have said, well, you're way better at paraphrasing. I'm talking for 5 minutes and then you're like, honor the ideas. I'm like, oh yeah, 3 words I could have said right there. That sounds good.
No, you had a lot of gold in there. I just wanted to boil it down for the comics here. Word economy. Comedy is
Mm-hmm.
brevity. Um, this is uh, this is interesting. This is from Alejandro. What can we do when the people misinterpret a joke and a heckler screams racist?
Ooh, it's interesting. Well, that at that point, it depends. You can say, you can react however you want. How I would do it is I don't say anything on stage that I don't believe in and that I haven't thought about. I mean, there are times something will come off the cuff,
Mm-hmm.
and if I say it and I'm like, oh, that didn't feel right, I will immediately say, hold on, that didn't feel right, and then I'll break it down with the audience in the room.
Huh.
Um, just because it's like, if you had to hear me say those words, then you're also going to hear me figure out why I thought they were wrong, what I think would be right. We're going to sit through this together. Um, but I would say if you really believe in something and you have the facts to back it up, then I would just ask why they think it's racist. You know, I would, I would start a dialogue. I mean, I
Huh.
can't do colleges anymore unless I just do a town hall meeting. So I'll start off with one bit and then we'll go around the room. I'd do 15 minutes of material, and my college shows last an hour, and it's because we're just talking about the material. Because I think when you let people voice their opinion, they're going to have it, right? But then you have an opportunity to not only figure it out with that one person, but all the other ears are hearing it, the dialogue too. So I think it's just an opportunity when someone calls you a racist to say, why do you think that?
Wow. That's gold.
I don't know that
Ooh-wee.
that's true. It might get somebody shot, but that's my answer.
He's gonna Alejandro's gonna get I had a similar experience. Like I have a joke in my special comparing Chinese people to Mexicans because I was a dishwasher. It all started, I was a dishwasher. I was working with Mexicans. And I was like, we use Mexicans for X, Y, and Z. And I was like, oh, we also do that with Chinese people. So then I was starting to brainstorm what other parallels there are. But in working that joke out, I did get heckled as I was racist several times working it out because I'm just so white. I look like the white devil, but I'm just his son, I swear. But me just saying another race makes people uncomfortable. So I
Sure.
had to, over time, find what the funny angle on it was and not me just saying Mexican and Chinese people.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. There's certain words for guys that have faces like you and I that no one wants to hear come out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And for great reason, historically.
Great reasons. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Or sad reasons, but understandable reasons for sure. Um, let me. There was one more in here I want to slide in. Then we have a special guest I want to bring on here. Um, where'd it go? Here it is. Jeremy Alder.
My son, yes.
Yes, your son. Yeah, you guys do look a lot alike.
We were at a brewery in North Carolina. I think it was at the brewery. Yes, it was for sure. And doing a show for my college agent. And these girls came up to me and go, "You look like his son." And he's like 2 years younger than me, that piece of shit. He looks so good. It makes me furious.
Oh, I thought you were kidding, but you actually know Jeremy.
I do.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, he's been hanging out in our daily writing club as well. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. He's fantastically funny.
Very nice. All right, Jeremy representing the hot breathiverse here. So he asks, have there been moments in your development when you could tell you had leveled up in your ability in some way, that you had reached a new level in your skill?
I think all those moments came in hindsight.
Mm.
You know, I don't think I've ever felt, well, I guess that's not true, because I have, I'm going to explain it this way. There have been times where I have seen people get things, i.e., Comedy Central specials, and I go, well, I could do that. I should do that. Right. And you have that thought before you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do it. And then afterwards, you're like, I don't think I was ready for that. A couple years later, you were like, I would have much rather done it now than then. Why was I beating the door down to show off my mediocrity? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So I think that, yeah, I mean, some things come in hindsight. All comedians know that when you record an album or have a special, you'll watch it or listen and go, that joke wasn't finished. That one wasn't done.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the crowd doesn't know that because they're having fun and they don't know that you could have added another level or whatever. But so I don't think in the moment I ever feel that way, but there are times where I can look back and just, you know, not be such a harsh critic, and I can go, oh, I guess that is the around the time when this happened, or when I feel like, you know, I used to make fun of individuals in the crowd for not laughing, and now I refuse to do that. I will give them percentages, because that way people have a choice. They can. Everyone wants to be part of the majority, right? So if you say 14% of you aren't laughing right now, and but great news, 86. That's a huge number. And then people, you know, some people won't like you and they'll be like, yep, 14 right here. But some people will be on the fence and not even know they weren't laughing because they're not outward laughers.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll go, well, I want to be part of the 86. Does he think I'm part of the 14? So instead of calling out individuals, I started doing that. And that's one of those moments where I thought, oh, this is a way smarter way to go about it.
Fun. Oh, that's another fun tip there. Yeah.
Don't you dare steal it. Don't you dare take my percentage.
Oh, they're going to be in the back of the room. Oh, he's doing the Chad Daniels percentage thing. Yeah. Yeah. Classic hack right there.
Classic Daniels. He loves a good percentage.
So let's get into, in these final few minutes here, we have a special guest I want to bring on, because
I can't wait.
A lot of these podcasts, the fans actually book guests on the podcast. And I've been a fan of yours for years, but one of our listeners actually took action and reached out to you on social media and made this whole thing happen. So I thought he's a newer comic, actually based here in the Atlanta area, but he's already producing his own shows. He's already doing like a lot of he's taking a lot of action in his career, which is what we're all about here at Hot Breath.
Nobody likes a go-getter, but anyways,
yes. Create your own success is what we like here. So I just want to bring him on for a few minutes to just ask some questions to you, because I know he's a big fan as well. So, ladies and gentlemen of the Hot Breathiverse, welcome the one and only John Chappell. Everyone, let's welcome John Chappell. Hey, Johnny. Can you you're sideways. There we go. And are you at a show right now?
I'm outside an open mic. Oh. Yeah.
I love it. Well, this is John and Chad. John, he's here. You did it, man.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for getting me on.
Yeah, we've already learned so much in the first part. So,
have you gone up at the open mic yet, or are you waiting to go up?
No, I'm waiting. It starts in about 15 minutes. So.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Nice. Yeah. Did you have questions for Chad or anything, John?
I do. I have a few questions.
Sure.
So one of the questions I had is, being that you're in comedy for over 20 years now, was there any point where you thought about quitting?
Ooh. Almost daily. And I know that seems like a funny answer, but there are, you know, it's when you have children and you travel and you have a wife at home and you're at airports, and you almost have to turn on a psychopath gene, which we all have, to leave your loved ones to go eat shit in front of strangers. I mean, there's something that you almost have to break it in a specific way for it to make sense. And, you know, there are times where you're just like, what am I doing out here? But then that's a little part of the day. The majority of the day, you're like, I don't know what else I would do. This is what I want to do. It's what I've always wanted to do since I was little. Someday, if I'm present with my kids, if I never miss anything important, I hope will understand. And, you know, my 21-year-old and 16-year-old, we've had so many conversations about this, and they seem to understand that that I just probably wouldn't have been as happy drywalling or something. Yep.
Gotcha.
How
And
about you?
well, I've only been in for 8 months. I did 3 open mics before COVID hit, so I just
Okay.
wrote for most of it.
Sure. Absolutely. So 8 months, 30 days, it's 240. You've thought about quitting 240 times? Makes sense to me. It's just
That
quick,
adds
man.
up.
I don't think I'm at the point where I've thought about quitting yet.
Sure.
I'm
No,
still in the what do they call that? The
honeymoon phase?
honeymoon phase. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So it's just nice to get on stage and get more comfortable.
I agree. You know, my last show before summer was in Spokane. That was March 11th. And I didn't go back on the road until the end of July. And I had some shows in St. Louis and Indy and Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Columbus, Ohio. And I just, man, oh man, getting back on stage and having people allow you to kick the rust off without freaking out and being like, this is horrible, spit it out, fat tongue. You know, it was really nice to have the support of the people. And, you know, we just went through an election and this country's torn, but I will tell you this, it's like, you got people coming in who voted for one guy, people coming in who voted for another guy. And they just wanted to be part of a good show and a fun show. And, you know, not to sound too douchey and like la-ti-da, let's get together, but you see it happening all the time. So, you know, I think that, I know you didn't ask me about politics, but I think the media loves to drive the divide home. But when you go out in public, especially at a comedy club and you're there, it's like people really do seem to be getting along and just want to have fun.
Definitely. So I have another question. One of my favorite bits of yours is the locker boxing bit.
Okay.
And I'm just curious how that came about, because it seems like it would not be organic. It seems like it would have taken a lot of thought.
Well, it didn't. I mean, I hate to disappoint you, but
Crushing dreams out here.
I just have a very kind of different way of parenting where, you know, my kids tell me everything. I tell my kids everything. We don't have any secrets. It's, you know, my daughter was at school the other day and she got a really bad cramp and she made a noise and this boy looked at her and she goes, I'm menstruating. And he looked like he was going to vomit. He was so sick to his stomach. And she doesn't realize that, you know, she talks about it all the time when she's home and I talk about it with her. She doesn't realize not all dudes talk about it all the time. So, which I think they should, it'd be a lot easier for everybody. But so if you remember the bit before the locker boxing, I made a chain where I ripped off a piece of the chain every day up until my son's 18th birthday because I was going to punch him in the face. And I really, really was going to. But when he came downstairs, I couldn't do it because, you know, you think about it, you're like, this is my baby boy. I'm not going to punch him in his face. So, and then we went outside and we locker boxed, and then everything, as I tell the story, I mean, that's one of those, we talked about luck, Joel, earlier. This is one of these bits that's lucky because it was just presented to me nonstop. It's like, oh, you think the joke is over with the locker boxing outside? It isn't. Here's an email that tells you what, you know, this Urban Dictionary says locker boxing is. And I was like, oh, wow, that's another punchline. And, you know, it just kept kind of coming in naturally. I didn't really have to do much with it besides tell the story.
Now, my understanding is that it wasn't actually in Urban Dictionary, was it? It didn't go in until after your special came out?
Well, I took a picture of it. Excuse me, the guy in, I think it was what am I thinking of? Arkansas. What's the capital of Arkansas? Why can't I think of it?
Little Rock.
Thank you. West Little Rock? Maybe. Anyways, sent me an email with a screenshot of it from Urban Dictionary. I think the thing that changed is in the definition, it uses part of my joke as like the how to, you know how they always use the word in a sentence? I think that they changed it to a part of my joke to for that sentence. I think that's what changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the bit before the pubic hair?
That brought me to the locker boxing.
Yeah, you said you were breaking the chain.
Oh, right. So I just had a bit from the album before, I think, where I had made a construction paper chain like you do when you're a little kid for Christmas and you rip off one of the links every day until Christmas. Well, I was ripping off one of the links every day until his 18th birthday so I could punch him in the face. And it was in our house with a gold link at the end of it. And so he knew it was coming too.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I have a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old daughter. So
Okay.
We talk about menstruation a lot too.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to. You can't, all the quiet. Imagine being a young woman and going through all this stuff, and then one of the two people that are supposed to help you get through life shuts down and doesn't talk to you about it. That just seems incredibly insane to me.
Definitely. One other question. At what point in your career were you at when you stopped doing open mics? And I assume it's because you were doing enough shows that you didn't have to do open mics anymore. Is that right?
Well, I love open mics and I would continue to do them. However, I live in a place, I was talking to Joel earlier, there isn't stand-up. So, I mean, if I was going to do open mics, I'd have to do like a Pat McGann surprise show on his kids during quarantine. I don't know if you guys saw those. Pat McGann is just such a funny comedian, incredible, from Chicago, has a new special out. And he would his kids would be watching TV and he's like, "It's time for the surprise show." And he'd walk out and his kids would be like, "Dad, come on." And he's like doing bits about them. Oh, it was so funny. But why did I tell you that? I forgot where I was going with this. Oh, open mics. So that's basically what I would have to do to have an open mic. I would just have to do it in front of my son and daughter. Anytime I can do an open mic, I choose to. Like if I'm in a town where, you're doing a show on Thursday and there's a later open mic, I try to get to that open mic just because it's fun. And even if you don't go up, it's awesome to see that new comedian excitement. Yeah. Sometimes you forget because you're on the road and it's like, oh God, I've been on the road for 10 straight days. And, sometimes it feels like work. Not always, not even a small percentage of the time, but sometimes it does. But to go in and see a new comedian's energy and passion for it, it's like, it's great. Like a little fountain of youth there.
Yeah. And then one last one. I heard you talk about keeping all of your hotel keys when you were featuring on the road. Right. That way you could go in and get free breakfast. Correct. At any hotel.
Yep.
Are there any other is there any other advice you have for saving money while on the road?
Well, Joel brought it up earlier. I would, if you have an off night, so I would either camp. I love camping. Some people don't love camping though. So I would either go to a state park and I would camp, or my recommendation is always to sleep in a Walmart parking lot because they have lights and they have cameras because truckers park there overnight. And, rest stops don't have cameras, but Walmart parking lots do. So at least if you get murdered, your family will have closure.
Closure. I've heard you say that joke a few different ways in a few different interviews, but closure, sure. I think that's the closure there. I think that's the wording of it. That nailed it. I think so. Closure. Oh, hilarious. I didn't mean to cut you off there, John. Was that your last question, or?
Yep, that's all I had.
Nice.
Well, thanks a lot, John, and good luck with everything, especially your kiddos, and have fun at the open mic tonight.
Thank you. I will.
Yeah. Good luck, John.
Bye, buddy.
Thank you, guys. See you.
Awesome. And really just just kind of in closing here, and Dan's been making a lot of Dan Maynard has been making a lot of positive comments about you. And nice. just as we land this plane, he does mention about your ability to create a connection with the audience to make everyone feel involved. What kind of tips do you have for a comic when it comes to connecting with an audience and creating that genuine, authentic connection?
Well, I think being hungover and forgetting your set is a great place to start,
All
because
right.
then you have to talk to people and get to know them. No,
Gotcha.
I mean, it depends. It depends on what style of comedy you're doing. I am very genuinely interested in other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know the best way for everyone to have fun is to kind of knock down some barriers as we go. And part of that is just talking to people and making them comfortable. I used to go after hecklers so quickly and so aggressively, and that's just young man bullshit. So um, now I try to engage. I try to figure out why they're heckling. Like I told you before, someone calls me a racist or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I would want to know why. I just genuinely am. I'm curious about people, and so I ask a lot of questions. And I think hecklers are taken aback by that because they expect to be on defense. But I'll let you play offense. I just want to know what's making you yell at me. That's all.
Yeah, that can be scary for newer comics. So when you get a heckler, what is like what is your game plan at that point?
I don't really have one. I mean, if you are, I can normally now I can calm almost any heckler down again because I don't come over the top. I don't start a fight. I just want to know what's going on with them.
Mhm.
Um, when I was 25 and a 35-year-old heckled me, no 35-year-old on planet Earth wants to hear questions from a 25-year-old to, you know, no 35-year-old thinks a 25-year-old has any wisdom. But now if I get heckled by a 35-year-old, I'm 45. So now it's switched a little bit where I can be, I'm seeing big brother, dad, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And it's a little different because, I have gray in my hair and gray in my beard. And I seem like I might know some things, even if I don't. I seem like I might. So I think that's helped quite a bit as well. But also calming down and just taking the piss and vinegar out of my set has been fantastic.
Yeah, I found me smiling. I used to be kind of like furrow browed and a little more of like,
Sure.
can you believe this? But as I smile more, the baby face works more if I'm more sarcastic as opposed to condescending.
Sure. Absolutely. I can see that.
So let's the final thing here. We always end this episode with, and thank you so much for being so generous with your time as well
My
again,
pleasure. Thanks
Chad.
for having me.
You've helped a lot of comics today. We always ask, what is your favorite piece of advice? Do you have any closing advice that you could bestow upon this next generation of great comics?
Hmm. I should have had that ready. Let me just think for 1 second. We're gonna go dead air here for 10
No
seconds.
problem. No problem at all. And thank you to everyone who has been tuning in as well, asking such great questions.
Yeah, thanks for everyone that showed up. That's fantastic. I really appreciate it. And hi to the people I know, and hi with this end to the people that are just showing up now. Um, I would say stop caring about the outcome so much. That's going to be what I say. I mean, let's put comedy aside for a second and let's just go real life, right? You see teenagers, again, 21-year-old and 16-year-old, and they're going through a relationship or something, and they see it kind of starting to crumble. And even if it's not a good idea, they hang on so tightly that they basically strangle the other person. Um, but I think, and when I say don't care, I don't mean go up there in a robe and slippers and tell people to F off and all this stuff. I'm saying don't make it the end all be all, because you're going to get something out of it, right? If you don't kill, you're going to get something out of it.
Mm.
I remember there was a set where when I was younger, I used to let the crowd dictate the jokes I went to. And I was like, oh, they like dirty, so I'm going to do dirty. And then one day, I just couldn't, no joke I picked was working. And I was like, well, forget it. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And they can come along or they don't have to. And that's it. And I think once I let go a little bit, that helped a ton, because then it was just, you're more emotionally involved in things you want to talk about. And so people can read emotions. I mean, we're social creatures. So if you're up there, I used to tell a joke for, I think it was like 6 straight years, about hitting a pheasant with my car. And my buddies watched a set of mine once and they go, "What were you thinking about up there when you were telling that joke?" And I go, "I was thinking about what I was going to order when I got off stage. How did you know that?" And they were like, "Well, your eyes glazed over and you became like a robot." So I think when you're emotionally involved in what you're saying, people feel it, and then again, social creatures, if you're empathetic, emotions kind of feed off one another. So then the crowd kind of gets into it a little bit more. And so I would just say, you have to sum it up with 3 words. What did I just say for 10 minutes?
Be patient.
Boom. Be patient. Let it go.
That seems to be, just be patient, enjoy the ride, enjoy the process.
Yep. I would say so.
Well, is there in the closing bell here, would you mind looking into the camera and saying your name and why comics should listen to Hot Breath?
Sure. Hi. My name is Chad Daniels, and I think you should listen to Hot Breath because you may or may not get some great advice.
All right. Chad Daniels, everyone. Let's give him a round of applause. Woo woo! And where can we go? What links can we share to help support you here, Chad?
You can, my website, chaddaniels.com. I'll have my tour dates for when I go back on the road. That's starting in January. Hopefully, we're seeing some spikes, so we're just going to have to be patient with this. And then you can follow me, that Chad Daniels, on Twitter or Instagram. However, I need to let you know that I am off social media for 1 full week. I have erased the apps from my phone because I need some peace and quiet.
Whoa.
So I thought it'd be a good time to do it.
So you're right now in the middle of being off social media?
Yeah, just today.
Today's day 1?
Today's day 1. I am, however, we talked about Dan Maynard quite a bit. I am going to hop on there on my computer to read his message.
Be careful. Have you seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix yet?
I have, yeah.
Okay. Be careful if you get on Facebook. That's the gateway drug, But we'll definitely share those links in the comments and show description. And Chad, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, Joel. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. All right, we're off air. Oh, all right. There you have it, Hot Breath the Verse. Chad Daniels. Go forth with your days now. Our entire mission here at Hot Breath is to cultivate the next generation of great comics. If you'd like to join that generation, go join our Facebook group. It's linked in the show description, and start connecting with other comics around the world and start leveling up your comedy. I am comedian and host of Hot Breath, Joel Byers. Feel free to connect with me on social media at Hot Breath Pod or at Joel Byers Comedy with any questions you have. I want to help however I can. That is the whole goal of the Hot Breathiverse. So have fun out there. Tell your comic friends to join the Hot Breathiverse, and we'll see you next week.